We have three shiurim, the next three shiurim. So please be here, same time and place in the next three shiurim. If you did not get the message on the email, um, then we shared very exciting news on Friday that we will be having a seminar for only for the Talmidim, only for the students of this shiur, which will physically take place so that we get to meet each other and have a full day together with the different rabbis who teach here. And that will be in just in about a month. It will be on October 2nd in Malmo. I don't know if you got the message. So we're really hoping that many of you can make it physically. And we'll have a full day of learning together, which will be both nice and important to have the chance to gather together to learn, to be together physically as a group and not have all these technical glitches as well. You won't get rid of me so fast. No one's going to be able to kick me out of the room just like I just got kicked out. So I'm really hoping that you can save the date and that you can. For some of you, it's a bit farther. Those who are joining us from Helsinki or Oslo, it's a bit farther. Copenhagen and Malmo are very close. So I hope that we can all gather there. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to share them in the chat throughout the shiur. This is also a more intimate shiur than the one on Wednesday, so you're also just welcome to unmute yourself if anything is unclear, or if you have anything that you want to share during the shiur. I will also send out a registration form, and I ask if you could please fill it out as soon as possible if you are planning to come to the seminar, so that we can begin organizing and know approximate numbers. So if you cannot wait to the last minute, if you do think that you will be coming, you can always cancel a week before, but just to let us know that you're thinking of coming, that would be helpful. So I'll send it out to the emailing list later this week, meaning next week in the Swedish or the Scandinavian way. We say Shavua Tov, we started the week, but today or tomorrow you'll get a registration form. Please fill it out. That's it for the technical side. And I'd like to go further. We have a question from Rebecca, practicality. Okay, this Sunday we can't travel Shabbat, so we need to organize sleepovers. I think we'll start late enough in the day so that if someone is taking an hour flight from Oslo or Finland from Helsinki, you'll be able to make it on time. So we won't start. We'll try to figure that out, or you can even let me know if there's if you plan to take a train or a flight or whatever. We can plan accordingly. Start maybe 9:30 or 10 in the morning, so you have some time to get get there. And if you come in at 12, that's also fine. I think it's very important that we get to meet each other physically. Thank you for the question. Okay. I'd like to go this year. What we've been doing, we've been actually learning practically halakha. But the name of the shiur is Jewish Circles of Jewish Life and Practice. And one of the catchy things about halakha is that you get very involved in the details themselves of the practical details. How do I keep Shabbat? How do I keep kashrut? And there's a certain point when we were planning this year, we said, well, at a certain point, we have to take a step back and talk about what this is all about. And what are the principles of faith in God, which all of this is based on? One would say, what is all of Judaism based on? Then there's something very essential in understanding what is the essence of the trust and the faith that we believe in. When Maimonides describes the conversion process, for example, he says that the conversation with the Beit Din, with the religious court of law, should the majority of that discussion should actually be about faith, because all of the rest is the practicality. In other words, many times we might get caught up even in as rabbis in, oh, well, do you do this or that? But one second, Maimonides is telling us, wait, It could be that someone knows everything, has a great, mind, and knows all of the books by heart. But what is there in his heart is a very important question. And I would also say it's very important, it's very difficult because anything that we talk about in the shiur will always be knowledge, whereas what we're asking for is something deeper than knowledge. It's something which can go in the heart, and it's very difficult also to even bring forward and ask that question or discuss. What do I believe in? Can I even set principles of what we believe in? Is that even possible? And as we're going to see in the next three shiurim, even among the um, between Maimonides and other philosophers of Judaism, there's differences of opinion of how many principles of faith there are. There's even differences of opinion on those principles of faith. So to say, well, yes, I know that Maimonides has 13 principles of faith. Yes, it's important. It's important to know them as well, but it's not important to know them in order to be able to answer that question. It's important to know them in order to ask yourself, do I believe in them? And I think that's a very important distinction. Do I actually believe in them? Do I understand them? Do I understand them at a deep level? What do they mean for me? And that's only something in many cases that you can only answer for yourself and not for someone else. So we're going to try in the next three shiurim to go into this, which will also include basic principles in Judaism. But all of Judaism is based on these principles. So we're going to try to go into that, get an understanding and get a description. And I'll also give you some homework in the books that you hopefully have. If you don't, if you have the PDF, if you're missing the PDF, then let me know and I can send it over to you. And you can order the books either through when the shiur began, we ordered books together. You can, if there's a bunch of you from the same community, you can ask your rabbi to order for it to help you out, or you can just order them through Amazon. So I'll just remind us, we have the series is called the Erev series of Rabbi Adina Evan Israel Steinsaltz, and it's 4 books that we follow throughout these shiurim. I can give you the link to them, and I can resend out the information for anyone who's missing that. And I can also send. I got permission from the publisher to share the PDF with you as well. So, but it's really preferable that you have this as like the essential guide for Judaism. One can say in 4 books. There's thousands of books. So we can also technically deal with that as well. All of this communication regarding the shiur can be sent to info@scandin.org. I can share that with you. Now I see that we have some technical things before we can actually get into the shiur, just because we're restarting. So I'm sharing that in the chat room, in the chat right now, info@scandin.org. So any communication regarding the shiur can be sent to there. If you're not on the mailing list, if you want the PDFs, you can just send an email to there. Okay. So let us hopefully begin, because this is a huge subject. I want to share with you, in preparing the shiur, I came across a story on Shabbat that I thought would be appropriate to begin the shiur with you today. The story from it was in a Chabad pamphlet about a Chabad rabbi in the United States, in Minnesota, and the story was that they tell took place a few decades ago. There was a very famous professor in the university there, and he was non-observant. He didn't want to have anything to do with Judaism, but he liked the Chabad rabbi a lot, and they had a personal relationship, and they got along. But every time the Chabad would suggest something to him, he said, I have my own way, just leave me alone. One day he tells the rabbi that he's planning to take a trip somewhere. And the rabbi says, I've never asked anything of you. Can I ask you a favor, a personal favor? He says, of course. says, I know what you're going to answer, but just consider something. You're a public figure, and people respect you a lot in this, in the university. I'd like to ask you if you can, order kosher food for yourself on the plane when you're traveling. So he says, but you know that I don't keep kosher at home. Like, what's the point? So I don't keep kosher at home, but I keep kosher on the plane. He says, it's going to make a big, if people know you very well, and if they notice that you're eating kosher food, then it might make an impact on them. So he says, you know what, I'll think it over. I'm not sure. But at the end, he says, you know what do I care? No one's going to even notice anyway. They're going to give me my kosher meal. No one's going to even notice that they gave me the kosher meal. I'll just do it for the rabbi just to get him off my back. So he's on the plane, and they come and they give him a regular non-kosher meal. He says to them, excuse me, I ordered a kosher meal. The attendant, the stewardess goes and looks for the meal, and it becomes a big deal. And she says to him, I'm really sorry, but we forgot your kosher meal. You were the only one who ordered a kosher meal, so it must have been forgotten. And, we're sorry. He thinks to himself inside, what do I care? I did my effort for the rabbi and I couldn't care less. So I may as well, I'm hungry, I'm going to eat the food. But something inside said, people here are already watching and it's already become an incident. And then if they see me eating the non-kosher meal, it's going to hurt the rabbi, so I won't do it. So he doesn't eat the kosher food. He doesn't the non-kosher food. He gets off the plane and he's really, really hungry. And he's very, very angry. First of all, he's angry at the rabbi for putting him into such a situation. He's angry at God for putting him into such a situation. He comes to the airport and he says, you know what, I'm so hungry. Now I'm going to eat that. They had the only thing open was these, this hot dog place, which was obviously not kosher. And he said, now I'm going to have my non-kosher hot dog. I did it for the rabbi, but I'm so angry and I'm so tired and hungry, I'm going to eat it. But before I do that, I'm going to call the rabbi up. It was 2 a.m. and I'm going to call up the rabbi. He calls up the rabbi. The rabbi is sleeping. He wakes him up and he says, is everything okay? I mean, he says, you know what? I'm really angry at you, but I just want you to know that I'm going to eat the non-kosher hot dog right now. And as I eat every bite of it, I'm going to mention your name out loud, because you put me into this situation. The rabbi takes a deep breath and he says to him, well, you could do that. But we've had many, many philosophical discussions about what is the essence of Judaism. And the essence of Judaism is whether you do or you do not eat that non-kosher hot dog right now. He says, like, what do you mean? He said, that's it. I wish you safe travels. Good night. So he goes and he buys himself the hot dog. And he's sitting there with the hot dog, angry and confused, and he doesn't know what to do. And he puts the hot dog down. Doesn't know why. And he walks away. And that was the last time he ate non-kosher in his life. In other words, why is it the essence of Judaism? And I thought this is a very good story to begin with. Because beyond all the practicalities that we ask ourselves in Judaism, that we get so involved in, what can we touch on Shabbat? How do we set up the plata? How do we set up the lights in the refrigerator and eat kosher and eat this and all of that? Beyond all of that is a basic question. Do we really believe that there's someone above us watching us? And if so, it's a slight change that we have to do in life, but that is the compromise that we have to make sometimes, to realize that we must make changes because he really actually is there and he really does care. And once we do that, we're then on the path. I think it's very connected to the shofar blowing of Elul that we blow for a month before the actual mitzvah. We have the mitzvah of shofar, which is the commandment of the shofar blowing. But then we have not the mitzvah of blowing the shofar. We have a custom to blow the shofar throughout the month of Elul. Why? It's a wake-up call. We were talking about it on the last shiur as well, on Wednesday, that the wake-up call is to remind us that we are the children of God, and that we live in a fake world in a sense that the essential things of life are hidden from us. We forget them many times. We get involved in day-to-day. What are the mitzvot there for? Why do we have the commandments? The commandments are there to connect us. When the word mitzvah, which I think is important, the word mitzvah, which is translated as a commandment, which is used in the Torah, it says, Hashem says to Moshe, teach the children of Israel. It says, Tzav et bnei Israel, command the children of Israel. But the same word for commandment is the same word as connection and friendship. In Aramaic, you would say tzavta, it's to be together, it's a togetherness. So the commandments from God are to connect us, to connect our souls to their natural place, to acknowledging the fact that God is within our lives, that Hashem is there with us. So it's not, you must do this, but rather this is a direction of telling you what to do in order to be connected. And I would like to open up the source for those of you who have the books. We are on page 381. Let me see if I can share. Let me just see if it's not too complicated to share on the screen. 1 second. We're in the book of the sages on 381. Let me see if I can share it. 1 second. One second. I can't access the PDF right now. So I'm just gonna, if you have the book, I'm in the book called The Concise Guide to the Sages. Let me take off the blur here 1 second. This book, the Sages, does anyone have the PDF or the book? Otherwise, I'll just, if anyone has it, please let me know.
We have the book, but not
The book. I have the book here.
You have the book?
Yes. What page is it?
So we're on the Sages on page 381. If you can you please start reading, and in the meantime, I'm going to try to access the PDF from the top of the page. Thank you.
Faith in God is the foundation of all mitzvot of the Torah and of the bond between people and their creator. Reliance on God, absolute trust in the one who created the world is the most complete manifestation of faith. The chapter that follows presents statements of the sages regarding the virtue of faith. The great reward awaits true believers. The essence of faith and the source for trusting God. That's the first text, and it's great is faith. Thanks to their faith, the Jewish people merited divine revelation, and thanks to their enduring faith, they will merit redemption in the future. In fact, the essence of Torah and mitzvot can be condensed into faith, on which everything is built. Great is the faith that the Israelites placed in the one who spoke, and the world came into being. And the reward for the Israelites believing God, divine inspiration rested on them, and they recited the song at the Red Sea, as it stated, and they believe in the Lord and in Moses his servant. That's Exodus 14:31. And it's stated immediately afterwards, then Moses and the children of Israel sang this song to the Lord, Exodus 15:1. Rabbi Simlai thought 613 mitzvot was the stated to Moses in the Torah, 365 prohibitions corresponding to the number of the days in the solar year, and 248 positive mitzvot corresponding to the number of the person's limbs. King David came and consolidated the 613 mitzvot to 11 mitzvot, and is written, a psalm by David, Lord, who may yearn in your tent. You may dwell on your holy mountain. He who walks with integrity and does righteous works and speaks the truth in his heart. He who does not gossip with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor tolerates disgrace for his friends. In his own eyes, he is despised and repugnant, but he honors those who fear the Lord. He besides, but he by his oath, even if they cause him harm, he does not lend with usury, nor does he take bribes against the innocent. Who behaves in this matter will never stumble. That's Psalms 51:5. Isaiah came and consolidated the 630 mitzvot to 6, as written. One who walks rightly and speaks fairly, spurns the profit of exploitation, shakes off his hand from being supported by bribery, stops his ears from conspiring bloodshed, and shuts his eyes from conceiving evil. Micah came and consolidated them to 3, as written. He told you, man, what is good and what the Lord demands from you, only to perform justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God. Isaiah then consolidated his original 6 mitzvot to 2, as it stated, so said the Lord, maintain justice and act with righteousness, for it is night that my salvation is to come and my righteousness is to be revealed. Isaiah 56:1. Habakkuk came and consolidated them to 1, as is stated, but the righteousness will live by his faith. Habakkuk 2:4.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. I couldn't access the PDF right now, so thank you for reading all of that out loud. What is text, which I hope you will look at further and learn, if you don't have it, then through the PDF that I can share with you. Basically, we all, right, it's a common fact that we have 613 mitzvot. We have 613 commandments, or tithes, as we can say, and those 613 are broken down to 365 prohibitions and 248 positive mitzvot. The 365 prohibitions, which are connected, one can say, to, according to the sages, but we have the 365 days of the year and 248 limbs in the body. So basically, the framework that we have are the 365 prohibitions. And one can say that many of them we keep just by being a righteous and just person. In other words, if the Torah tells us don't murder, then you don't wake up in the morning murdering, so you're already keeping that mitzvah. So in a sense, it's already it's a framework. I would say it's like that driving down the street. You're following many rules and signs without actually doing much, right? You're not speeding over the speed limit. You're not turning the wrong way. You're not doing this. So we have 365 of the framework of what we don't do. Then we have the 248, which direct us what we should be doing. But then one might feel, wait, how am I gonna, you mean I'm supposed to remember 613 mitzvot and then add to them the thousands or tens of thousands of details that the sages put? So the Midrash comes here and says, let's take a step back, sort of like what we were saying at the beginning of the shiur. And before we go into all the details of what they are, let's look at the essence of it. And King David came and he said the essence of all of the 613 can be put into 11. One who walks with integrity, does righteous works, speaks the truth in his heart, does not gossip with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor tolerates disgrace for his friend. He gives 11 essentials of what does it mean to be a good person, because at the end of the day, he says, well, the essence of it all is to be a good person. And that is connected to faith. How is that connected to faith? You can say, well, I'm an atheist and I'm a good person. But when you have to compromise your own ego and your own needs for someone else, that comes from a higher morale of knowing that God exists. The fact that we know that God watches over us puts us on this path to be a good person. And it doesn't mean that we don't have challenges, but it means that that is there in the background. So King David came and took the 365 and put them into 11. Isaiah the prophet put them into 6. One who walks similarly to King David, one who walks righteously and speaks fairly, spurns the profit of exploitation, shakes off his hands from being supported by bribery. In other words, bribery, why is that a good example? I talked about it in this last week's portion, the last week's parasha, about the judge that he may not take bribery, because that's something that no one else knows about. The public doesn't know about it, right? It's something about your internal justice that you have to have inside of you, and put your own gain aside in order to do what is right and to be just. Unfortunately, we hear many cases of judges that don't manage to do that, or governmental officials who, it's so easy to do someone else a favor, and even the name of, oh, you want to help someone, then well, no one will know about it, we'll just keep it between us. So that's why Isaiah adds bribery there. And Micha came and he takes all of the 613 and he puts them into 3. He told you what is good, what the Lord demands from you, to perform justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. To be humble with your God, why is that essential? And what is humility about? We can have an entire shiur on the essence of humility. But at the end of the day, one who realizes that everything that you have in God, in your life, is from Hashem. And all of the talents that you have are from Him. Doesn't mean you don't use them. On the contrary, you use them, but you use them humbly because you have received them as a gift from God. If a person is talented, if a person is smart, if a person has a beautiful voice, if a person has, many different talents that we might use to inspire other people, I think it's very obvious and people have a sense when someone gets on the stage, if they're full of their own ego, or whether they're there for the people. So you can be doing the same thing, but you can do it humbly, or you can do it right with humility. This is in that sense, we are Am Yisrael, right? We have the from the very beginning of Genesis, we have a parable of the sun and the moon. And what is the difference between the Zohar talks about what is the difference between the sun and the moon? The sun has its own light which shines, but it's so strong that one can't even look at it. Whereas the moon has no light of its own, but it takes the sun's light and makes it beautiful. So that is the essence of humility, to take something from the light of God and shine it in a way that other people can receive it. That is the essence of humility, of walking humbly before God. You can have a sense of false humility in which you say, oh, I won't do that, because who am I to do that? No, you must stand up strong with the talents that you have been given and use them. However, all the time remind yourself and pray to God that you're doing it in the right way, that you're not misusing the gift that He has given. So Micha adds to walk humbly before God. It's an essential thing. Isaiah takes, who himself, he said 6, then he puts it down to 2. He says, maintain justice and act with righteousness. And then Habakkuk, these are all prophets. He says, but the righteous will live by his faith. What does it mean to live by your faith? Tzaddik ve'emunato yichyeh. Right, that tzaddik, the righteous, will live from his emunah. In other words, what is the life energy? What is the life source that I receive from? When I wake up in the morning, who's turning me on? It is God. So the first thing that we say in the morning, we say, Modeh or Moda ani lefanecha. Thank you, God. Melech chai v'kayam. Shechezarta bi nishmati, that you have returned my soul to me. B'chemla rabba, with great kindness. Emunatecha, your belief. In other words, the fact that we have a soul, that God has given us a soul, that we have woken up with that soul, means that we are waking up with faith. We wake up with that faith. And then the question is, what do we do with the faith that we have? So emunatecha means I can actually wake up, I should wake up joyful every morning because God believes in me, because He's given me back my soul. So I walk with Him throughout the day. He's there behind me, He's there with me, I think is in its essence of understanding what Judaism is all about. He is present in my life. It's not only a question of reward and evil. The Rambam in the 13 principles of belief that we will discuss, he talks about the belief in reward and punishment, but that's an effect of the fact that God is with us. We don't live our life through fear of reward or fear of punishment or being glad for reward. And then it's an effect of the fact of whether we have been following the proper path. So understanding that God is with you and with us throughout the day, and He believes in us, is an essence of Him being of His presence being there throughout our day, and therefore directing our lives. Lars, you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, but you said about the traffic rules. And I actually got a ticket a few days ago because I speeded, and I felt so very ashamed because it's a very simple thing to understand that there is a system of rules. And I also thought many times that it's very good because people drive too fast, and suddenly I was the person who drove too fast, and I got punished because of this, and I got out, and it was very obvious that I got outside the system. I got outside and thought for myself that I don't have to obey this. I can go faster because I have needs, and I created my own rules. This is simple to understand. It is also simple to be ashamed, and it is simple to promise not to do it again. But at the Sabbath, sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, every Sabbath, there is some confrontation with something maybe I forgot to turn on the light on the toilet, and could this be a very big problem? Then I want to create my own rule spontaneously to kind of, I can turn it on, it doesn't matter. But then I also then I can think that no, this is what holiness is about, to keep the system whole, to do these things even when I don't really understand them, is to keep the relationship with Hashem holy. And it's easy to understand with the traffic rules, but it's so much harder to motivate oneself when it comes to things that you don't really understand. But in the same way, the faith is kind of built of also the trust in to keep the holiness, to do these things even when you don't really understand them, and not create a system outside where, when my intelligence is supposed to be better, I can think that, okay, this with the light maybe works for someone, but not for me, because I have to go to the toilet now, I forget it. So for me, this with the faith is also very strongly connected to the concept of holiness, to keep the system whole.
Thank you very much for sharing. A reflection on what you're saying, and I fully hear what you're saying. I think there's, for all of us, even though we might not like it, there's a difference between being a good person and following the traffic rules, as you said. But if a police officer is there, will probably help us a lot more, right? In other words, if there's actually a police officer standing at the light, I doubt that many of us are gonna are gonna go through the red light, or speed. I had a very interesting um, reflection on this. I was in Vermont in the United States a couple of months ago, and a police officer is driving behind me quite a while with his lights on. And in Israel, the police officers always have their lights on. And apparently in Vermont, that's not the case. So he's driving behind me for, like, I don't know, maybe 20 kilometers or 30 kilometers. Finally, I pull over and I let him pass. And he stops behind me and he says to me, "Have you noticed, sir, that I have my lights on?" I said, "Yes." So he says, "Well, do you know what that means?" I said, "No." So here I'm in a situation in which I got mixed up between kilometers and miles, actually, because I wasn't used to it. And then I was a bit over the speeding limit, not a lot. And then I had a very good conversation with him, because I said, "Thank you so much for educating me," because I didn't know the rules. I said to him, "I don't know why you give in people international license just because they have one in one country, because they don't actually know the rules in another country. I had no idea if you have your lights on, I'm supposed to pull over immediately." And we ended up having such a good conversation. And I just thanked him for educating me. And he said, "You know what? I'm not going to do anything. I'm very glad we had this conversation, and take care." And he left. So if I got into an aggravated situation or defensive, then that wouldn't have been the outcome, first of all. But using that as a parable, then we have something which is using the word holiness. But I think one other level we can add to that is the word trust, because faith and trust are really connected. The word emunah is really interconnecting those two words, both faith and trust. So if I have trust in God and I live my life in both in faith that God exists, but also in trust, then I have trust in itself, which is something which is very challenging. I think it's one of the more challenging things in the modern society that we live in today. And we talk about it a lot in Amana, which is the word for faith and trust in Arabic, in our Muslim Jewish organization in Malmo, where we're working together. And the word that we chose was Amana, and then translating it, it's translated to, you can say, tro or tilit, but it's different words, right, in terms of what does that actually mean. But anytime I ask people, do you feel that there's more or less trust in the society that we live today? The answer will always be less trust. People will say, "I never used to lock my door." Now who could imagine not locking my door? So there's a basic trust that is missing in the society, that it's losing its daily connection to God, that doesn't live that. It creates a trust in people, because if we all believe that people are created by God, it creates a wholeness, right? Using the word Lars, that you wholesomeness. We all belong to one. We are all one. We are all with the one, and in that sense, that creates trust, and ties everything together. The word emunah can also, like mitzvah, be connected to the word to tie. So at the end of the day, faith, I think what all of the prophets are telling us here is that faith and trust in God is not disconnected from how you are as a person and how you live your life. On the contrary, if you find yourself praying in the morning and then sitting down as a judge and accepting bribery, something's really wrong, because you didn't. How could you do that? And how can you pray and feel God's presence and then he disappears a minute later? But it's challenging because we live in the bubble of this world, which is constantly challenging us, which is why the prophets come forward all the time and say, God prefers your righteousness even over your prayers. There was a situation in which, in the second temple, in which people were offering the offerings in the temple, and God says, I don't want them anymore if you're not righteous people, if you don't know how to be a trustworthy person, if you're, God forbid, murdering people and then walking into the temple. Like, how can you live in that disconnection, in which, in the one sense, I say, yes, I believe in God, but on the other hand, I live my life in another way. So what this midrash from the Mechilta de Rabbi Ishmael that we read today, it says, let us not forget that connection between faith and trust in God, and how we live in our lives. So I would like to look at one more source. This time I think I have the PDF. We're going to skip to the book called A Concise Guide to Machshava, which is of sources of philosophy, of Jewish philosophy. And I have this one. I think I have on my desktop. Let me try to share it. Give me 1 second. Yes, this one I have. Okay, I'm on page 126 in the book on Machshava, on Jewish philosophy. And I'm going to try to share it here. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay. So anyone else willing to read for us?
I can read.
Okay, thank you.
The basis of Jewish life is faith in God, who gave us the Torah and the mitzvot. One should not be satisfied with merely an emotional inclination to faith. Rather, one must strive to know that there is a God. In order to strengthen one's faith, one can reflect on the miraculous aspects of the well-ordered universe, of the wonders of the human soul. The word faith, Emunah, is related to the term imun, meaning training. One is required to train himself to perceive the world's inner meaning and not just its external appearance.
Yeah. So basically, the word emunah, we said, is connected to faith, to trust, and also to training, as we see here. Training means that if you ask anyone who is in any type of sport, then you have a regular training, and if you step out of your training, then you lose your track, right? You're no longer at the same level, and it's intense training. So if one were to say to yourself, well, what is the essence of belief? Then it requires training. It's not something that just disappears. I would say specifically prayer requires training, not only the training of understanding the words, but the training of opening your soul to that channeling with Hashem, that He is present, that you can speak to Him, that you're with Him, that He is with you. So in that sense, faith in itself is not something that, oh yes, I believe. It's something which is existential as part of our day-to-day life, which requires training as well. Let's look at the source. This is a source from a part of the Zohar called Raya Mehemna. Let's see what it says, please.
The commandment to believe. Before performing mitzvot, one needs to know that there is a supreme ruler, the master of the universe, who created all the dimensions of reality. The first mitzvah is to know that there is a supreme ruler. And you will know that I am the Lord your God. This mitzvah is the first of all the mitzvot. It comes before all the mitzvot. To know the Holy One, blessed be He, in general. What does in general mean? Knowing that there is a supreme ruler who is the master of the universe and who created all the worlds, the heavens, the earth, and all their hosts. This is what in general means, and ultimately, in specific ways, one must know Him in specific ways. Before the Exodus, God was known in a general way, and in the end, He was known in a specific way. When the
just to comment on this, in other words, there's a difference between knowing that God exists to having a relationship with Him. Before Am Yisrael becomes a people, because before the children of Israel becomes a people, there's a general knowledge that God exists. And as you know, there was a lot of idol worship, and there were many gods. So God existed, and we see that with in the conversation between Moses and Pharaoh, between Moshe and Paro. He says, well, which God is this? In other words, I don't know of this one. So you have a general understanding that that there is a master of the universe, but it's not connected to the specifics of having a relationship with Him, as we will see in this text. Please go on.
When the children of Israel departed from Egypt, they did not know the Holy One, blessed be He. When Moses came to them, he taught them this first mitzvah, as it is written. And you will know that I am the Lord your God, who takes you out from under the burdens of Egypt. Were it not for this mitzvah, Israel would not have believed in all the miracles and acts of might that God performed for them in Egypt. Once they knew this commandment in a general way, that is, they knew about the existence of the Creator, miracles and acts of might were performed for them. 40 years later, when they strove to keep all the mitzvot that Moses had taught them, both those mitzvot that are performed in the land of Israel and those that are performed outside the land, he then taught them specifically that which is written, you shall know this day and restore to your heart. Namely, it is only on this day, after receiving all the mitzvot, that you know in detail that which was not optional beforehand, that the Lord, He is the God. This is specific knowledge of God. There are numerous mysterious subtleties associated with this. This mitzvah and the one given at the beginning are one, that one in general, and this one specifically.
It's very interesting that, thank you. The word knowledge itself, the first time that the word, the source word for knowledge, in other words, we have the tree of knowledge, which we can go into long conversation of what is that story actually teaching us, which is very much connected. Why does the Torah start off with just the story of the tree of knowledge? But then, not long afterwards, it's the same word, root word of knowledge is used. The word for knowledge is lada'at, dalid ain taf. Et hadat is the tree of knowledge. So how is knowledge connected to faith? And when one goes to the academy, once someone discussed with me, this person said that they are very interested in Judaism and that they've been learning in the university all about Judaism. Okay, well, it's great to go to the university and learn about, but that's not learning, that's not knowledge. That's knowledge in an academic sense. You know about Judaism, you know about Christianity, you know about Islam, you know about Hinduism. But what does the word knowledge actually mean? So the next time that the word knowledge is used in Bereshit is Ha'adam yada et Chava ishto, that Adam knew his wife. What does that knowledge mean? What do you mean he knew his wife? He was intimate with his wife. In other words, intimacy and knowledge, when I know something deeply, is not something that someone can take away because they've proven something else. If today I believe in God because of ABC, because I believe in it scientifically, but then tomorrow someone proves to me that scientifically I was wrong, then that knowledge can be taken away from me. So today I believe in Judaism because I went to a good course on Judaism. And then tomorrow I have a bright professor in Christianity who proves to me that Judaism was wrong. And then I become Christian. So every week I can convert to a different religion because I've had a better professor in that religion. Whereas knowledge in a deeper sense means that I have a deep connection, an intimate relationship to something. It says in the Torah that we shall know God. What does it mean to know God? To have a deep sense of connection and relationship, that He is present. He is a part, that without Him we do not live. So what this piece is teaching us from the Zohar is that basically all of the mitzvot are dependent on this, because otherwise it's just superficial. If everything that you do in the Judaism is because this is what you have been told, but you're missing the essence of your own connection to God, then you're missing the specifics, as he calls it. You know something in general, but it's not connected to what you're doing. When God gives us the mitzvah to light Shabbat candles, oh well, do we light them and then the next minute do something else, or is it meaningful for us? When we put on tefillin, we're tying ourselves by heart and mind to Hashem, to the Shema Yisrael. When I have the mezuzah on the door, do I do it because it protects me, or because I feel that God's presence is in my home? And therefore, as we saw in the prophets, therefore I'm careful with every word that comes out of my mouth, because God is present, and I'm reminded of that through the mezuzah being on my door. So when you have the one, it changes your life. And then if the toilet light, something you forgot, but it's not the question of whether you did or did not shut the toilet, turn the toilet light on before Shabbat. It's what do you do with the fact? Is God present for you? Is Hashem there for you in that moment of well, what do I do now? Is there something bigger there that is there, which is beyond what should I do or what should I not? A relationship, a knowledge, an intimate connection. So what we will see at the beginning of the shiur next week is how there's different ways of reaching this. In other words, it's not all the same. The path is not the same for each person. And we have different midrashim which teach us about which talk about Abraham as an example of teaching us how one reaches faith. You can do it through a natural sense. Maybe some people feel it naturally inside. Some people need a logical way. Some people need a proof. So there's different ways that one can reach this sense. But at the end of the day, as the Zohar says, the essence of all of the mitzvot, the mitzvah is the first of all of the mitzvot, because without this principle, none of the rest is actually relevant. One can ask, how can you command to believe? How can God command us to believe? Either I do or I do not. But that is not the case, because one can train oneself to allow oneself the natural sense of believing, which is what we talked about last week as well in the shiur on Wednesday. That belief is something natural, but maybe sometimes we have to take some things away in order to allow ourselves to connect to that belief in a natural way. So therefore, there can be a commandment, which Hashem says, I command you to believe. I even command you to love me. How can you command someone to love someone else? God says, I command you to love me, because it is something natural that should be natural to you, and you have to train yourself in order to allow yourself to be there. So what we began looking into is into some of the essential elements of faith and trust. And for those of you who have the book of Machshava, for those of you who asked for the PDF, for next week, I would like for you to look at if you look in the table of contents, I can share it with you now. Then a lot of what we're going to talk about has to do with these subjects in this book. So if we scroll down here, so this first part on love of God, loving one's fellow Jews, we'll get to later, so you don't have to read that now. Love of God, faith, and free will and trust in God. So as much if you want to go further into divine providence, that is fine. You can as much of this in the next 3 weeks, I aim as much of this section of this book that you can go through would be great, but especially for next week, to go through the love of God and the faith, free will and trust in God. I'd like you to have a look at those sections of this book. In the other book that is parallel to this book, we have the book that I did not have the PDF, and I will look for the PDF. So there's a part of it which is also on, let me just get the English one, the one that we're reading, A Concise Guide to the Sages. So we have the part there that we were just looking at that I would like you to look at as well, which is the part on the trust and the faith. But I will send, and I can send you an email that is on page 381 in the English version, 381 in the other book called A Concise Guide to the Sages. But I will send you an email with the homework for next week. And if you are not signed up for this shiur, which I hope you all are, then you can send an email to info@scandim.org. I shared it in the chat room, and I will send the homework there, and I will also send a form to sign up for the Sunday seminar that we will have on October 2nd. That's it for now. If anyone has any comments, you are welcome. Any questions, comments? Okay, well, I'm not gonna, when we meet physically, hopefully, then I'm not gonna let you get, I know it's a bit awkward on the screen, but I hope we have a much better conversation and learning together when we're not just looking at each other through the screen. So anyway, have a fantastic week and learning as well. I hope this was helpful to you and inspiring as well. That's my hope in teaching. And we will see each other next week on Sunday morning. You're welcome on Wednesday to the Nordic Beit Midrash as well. So Shabbat
Thank
Tov to
you.
everyone.
Shabbat Tov.